This is Inside Story, the only show about the system by people who lived it. I'm Lawrence Bartley.
Some guy came up to me, he was a young dude. He was like, yeah, man, I can't wait till I kill my first person, this, that, whatever. And I was like, what?
You have every opportunity, every day, wake up and do something different.
Do you ever think about how she was mentally and emotionally harmed?
Always, until this day.
Less and less people in the U.S. are receiving the death penalty, but that doesn't actually mean fewer folks will be sentenced to die behind bars. About 56,000 people are currently serving sentences of life without parole, and that number is going up.
When you were in court and you received your sentence, what went through your mind when you heard those words, life without parole?
It was like, I was numb, I was a zombie.
Dorian McElroy is serving a life sentence for 2 armed robberies he committed. The first when he was a minor. In the second, he stole a necklace from a woman who wasn't physically harmed.
They actually have 2 death penalties in Florida. The electric chair and life without parole sentences.
You see your sentence as a death sentence?
Yes, it's most definitely. Most definitely. It's a slow death.
In 1998, McElroy was one of the first people sentenced under Florida's prison releasee reoffender statute. That basically means if someone commits a felony on this list, ranging from murder to robbery, within 3 years of being released from prison, the prosecutor, not a judge, has full discretion to approve tougher sentencing.
When you first learned that prosecutors, state attorneys kind of take on the role of judge in these cases, what did you think about that?
I thought it was crazy. I'm like, y'all taking discretion out of a judge hand and put it in the state prosecutor hand, a person that has interest in the case.
Is this Dorian here?
Yeah, we went to see him Saturday. This one, he was in high school.
What do you remember about these years?
He was so active in sports. I remember sports. Because he was always good. He was
Must
at the
have been,
beach.
what, 5 or so here?
I think right here he was 6. He was
so
6.
cute. Look at that smile.
Still cheesing.
Yeah, he's got that same smile.
That same smile, yep.
When Dorian started having run-ins with the law, what would you say to him?
Boy, you better stop. You're gonna get in trouble. You're gonna get in something you can't get out.
What was it like when you learned that Dorian was getting a sentence of life without parole?
It didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. The charge don't fit the crime. This one is totally, it's racial. If you look up with this sentence that he has now, it's like black males, young males too, with sentenced with this kind of charges.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I don't know.
We started looking at the rapid explosion of prisoners serving life without parole sentencing in the U.S. And a big part of that equation is Florida.
Carrie Aspinwall is a reporter with the Marshall Project. They've spent time researching the rapid increase of life without parole and found that of the 11,000 to 13,000 people serving this sentence in Florida, Black men make up 54%, despite only accounting for 16% of the population. Overall, about 2,000 people were sentenced under the PRR statute, like McElroy.
When we started looking at why that was happening, it's not that there are so many more murderers behind bars. So I think it's a combination of prosecutors not wanting to spend their limited resources on pursuing a capital offense, and the fact that it's just somewhat easier to get a life without parole conviction than it is a death sentence. Life without parole was supposed to be used for some of the most heinous or severe crimes. But the problem is there are a lot of people being sentenced to life without parole who never would have gotten the death penalty and still would not today.
McElroy received the same sentence as the Parkland shooter, who murdered 17 people and injured 17 others inside a Florida high school in 2018.
That raises the question, what about all these other people who are serving life without parole who didn't kill anyone? And should they get a second chance? Should their cases be examined?
Florida State Attorney Ed Brodsky is president of the Prosecuting Attorneys Association.
I just wonder if there are certain people who are kind of slipping through the cracks and getting these life without parole sentences when really they should be given another chance and they could live a reformed life outside of prison.
I think it's always important to go back and look and make sure that there are not any unintended consequences. The vast majority of the sentencing structure under prison release reoffender doesn't require a life sentence. They've had to have committed the most serious of felony offenses. So we're talking about a very small number of individuals.
One of the very specific things about this law is that prosecutors get to decide the sentencing. Well, I mean, I think this freaks people out, that the judge has no power over sentencing.
That was an act of the legislature, and I think it was designed to send a clear message, to have deterrent value, to hold offenders accountable, to enhance public safety.
When you see, judges come forward and say, I would not have given that life without parole sentence, and you've seen that, does it make you think twice, like, should we be doing this?
Law enforcement here in the state of Florida and prosecutors are very interested in seeing that public safety is paramount here in the state.
Even though the victim wasn't physically harmed, do you ever think about how she was mentally and emotionally harmed?
Always, until this day. I think about it to this day. There's no one day do not think about the victim.
What makes you emotional talking about it?
How stupid I was. How her life has turned out.
For state attorneys who review your case and don't think your sentence should be reconsidered, what do you want to say to them?
They're not seeing who I am, what I have done. I have completed over 70 self-betterment programs. Dorian has the support of his family. Dorian has the knowledge to know what's right, what's important, what's right, what's wrong. Dorian has continued to be self-aware of his thoughts and his actions.
At least 16 states have taken steps to end a practice known as prison gerrymandering, which is when prisoners are counted in the district in which they're incarcerated instead of where they're actually from.
They can then legally bolster their own electoral power, saying, we've got all these residents, but those residents can't vote.
The practice tends to lead to undercounting during the census in minority districts and overcounting in the districts where prisons are often located, which tend to be rural and white. Long sentences and limited opportunities for parole mean more people are aging behind bars. By the end of this decade, it's estimated that a third of all incarcerated people will be over 50. The system's not set up for this. Elderly prisoners suffer chronic illnesses that require expensive and specialized treatments at higher rates than people on the outside. In post-Roe America, experts predict it may get harder to get an abortion in prison than it used to be. That's true even in states where the procedure is still legal because of hurdles like cost and staff discretion. This is especially relevant when you consider that a lot more women are ending up in prison these days. In 2020 and 2021, the government temporarily released over 30,000 people from mainly lower security prisons to ride out the pandemic at home. Fast forward, very few of them committed new crimes.
Actor Gbenga Akkinagbe is best known for his portrayal of gang enforcer Chris Partlow on HBO's The Wire. He's passionate about criminal justice reform and has even been part of the campaign to close Rikers Island. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, man.
Many of the people watching this know you from The Wire. that was about, hitmen, drugs, and crime. Do you ever worry about life imitating art in that case?
You mean, do I ever worry about falling into the drug world?
No,
And selling
not that.
keys?
No, I mean, do you ever worry about people watching that character and saying, "Oh, I want to be like Chris"?
It's funny you say that. Like that has happened. That happened when I was doing the show. Some guy came up to me, he was a young dude, and he was like, he started out by telling me, "Yo, I really like the show, this or whatever, The Wire is dope, whatever." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you," so on. And then he continues, like, "Yeah, man, I can't wait till I kill my first person, this or whatever." And I was like, so that was concerning.
I bet it was
That was concerning.
What did you say to him?
It was a long time ago. I hope I told him, like, we're just pretending, That rarely happens. What more commonly happens is I'll be walking down the street and there's somebody who was formerly incarcerated who will stop me and tell me like how the show told their story and they felt seen. And then also I can walk down the street and I'll have somebody who is like literally sitting in an unmarked vehicle undercover jump out and come to me, "Yo, I love that show, you're telling our story." I've had judges stop me and tell me, like, that when Chris killed Michael's stepdad for what Michael did, for what the stepdad did to him, that was my story. Judges talking about how they had been molested and how they I'm getting goosebumps. So that's more often what happens, and it has been happening for 20 years, right? So like a lot of things I've done have come and gone, but like that show continues to have that type of effect on people.
That's emotional capital.
Yo, oh wow, yes.
That's emotional capital.
Yes,
I like
yeah.
that.
Empathy is such a difficult thing for folks to experience for other folks. And so something that gets us to empathize is very powerful. And the Wire had the ability to have a middle-aged white teacher from middle America who's lived a very different life, totally understand why some Black or Latin kid in any American city, urban city, would go out to the corner and shoot somebody in the head or sell drugs, do the most abhorrent, disgusting thing. Like the Wire got them to not judge or not necessarily even not agree, but understand the circumstances that led this kid to making that messed up decision.
I remember when I first saw the series, I was incarcerated, and being at the series is about crime, prison administrators didn't want to show it inside of a maximum security prison. So we had to talk to them, we had to convince them that, it's just a show, it's fiction. And to be here talking to you today, I'm wondering what folks who undoubtedly was incarcerated with me watching this today would say, "Oh, he's talking to Chris. I remember when he got that series to play."
It's wild how life works. Like you took you took your experiences and you manifested this, right? You at one point you were watching The Wire while you were inside. Now you're outside, addressing all the issues The Wire was addressing. So it's inspiring to see that, and it's inspired, and it feels good to know that I was part of a show that inspired you.
I know you was involved with the Close Rikers campaign.
Yeah. So that's been an interesting thing to see, from the beginnings of that to like the numbers have shrunk at Rikers, but I mean obviously people are still dying there. It's one of the places that was hit worse during COVID. And I don't know how much justice has happened to folks who've abused prisoners there as well. One thing I find interesting about our prison system is that we forget that the goal is to bring these brothers and sisters back. But if you forget that, forget that these are real human beings whose lives are valued by society, no matter what the crime they've been convicted of and so on, then it's easier to make laws that are just endless punishment, that doesn't set them up for success when coming back, and does more damage. If we continue or try to, or like put more energy towards a restorative justice narrative, and that we would move different. And you definitely wouldn't be making mini Rikers around in different boroughs, right?
You're doing the work.
You try.
Not just an actor, huh?
Well, no. I've been fortunate to be able to create for a living, but there's more to all of us than that. I was like, look who's talking. There's more to all. You have so many sides to you, right?
Right.
So yeah.
Well, Gbenga, thank you for joining me.
And thank you for doing
appreciate
this.
it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
All right.
This has been dope.
That's not another thing. I asked up brother to get out here, man. That's what I'm talking. This side of the room, make some noise. Make some noise over here. Yeah. This side of the room, make some noise for me. Yeah. Keep over there going for the third. Hello, Ali Siddiq.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right there?
Yep. Perfect.
So from 19 to 25, I was incarcerated. I was a resident for 6 years. I was fed, I worked there, I was clothed, I endured the prison system for 6 years. People in the free society don't realize people who come from incarceration are like people who have been in war. Like I've been in a war physically and mentally. I was physically there, but mentally I was it wasn't a place that I thought that I belonged. So I didn't settle in. This is a place, this is horrible to me. Like I don't want to be here. But it also kind of made me exactly what I am.
And I'm just irritated. And I want to say some racist shit. That's what I want to say. But I can't. The lady is white. The father is Mexican. And the baby's black.
Even in choosing comedy to be my life's work, I chose a more difficult road to go down. I'm kind of like, I'm not a slapstick, I'm not a shock comic, I'm not trendy or current. I'm more of a storyteller, a griot.
My story is about prison danger, seeing that I look so menacing. White people that's in here, listen to me. You need black people to help you with your children. You can control a lot of things in this world, but what you can't control is that little white baby in that grocery store.
I've been doing this for 24 years. Most people know my story. You may be new to me, but most people know I used to be a street pharmaceutical rep, which is very frowned upon. It's like, when you sell drugs, they want you to go like to school and to have one of them little white coats and be it like a Rite Aid or a CVS or something, doing your business. But, paying taxes on it and whatnot.
What is this hat doing? What is this hat? What is this hat? Like, I tried to ignore it, and I just kept looking over it. I'm like, what is this hat doing? Like, this ain't even the hat. You don't shop for this hat. You bought that hat on the way here. You stopped at the gas station, and you was in there, and you paid, you like, hey, give me $20 on 7. See that hat up there. And that man said, what?
I remember how I started and really knew I was able to do it. I used to be an SSI. People who are incarcerated, they know that's a janitor. You like basically, you just clean up. I'm on this block where they locked up 23 hours a day on LS2. And they didn't have TV. So I used to watch Martin intensely. I would go and I would reenact the whole Martin episode for them because they didn't have TV. And then when Martin went off, I didn't have any material, so I would stand there with the push broom back where everybody can see me on the run, and I would just talk about what was going on in other parts of the prison and in other people's cells. And I was just doing stories. This is how I started doing stand-up. How is that gonna be a challenge for me to make you laugh when I was making people who had nothing to actually laugh about, laugh, or me just talking? Logical, sarcastic shit that I would normally say my whole life that people were like, yo, either, first of all, you're an asshole, but that was funny.
Do you have a specific message that you would want to give to folks who might be like watching this from the inside?
You got to have that so what attitude. You have to focus yourself, and you're not your mistakes, man. Those are things that happen. You have every opportunity, every day, to wake up and do something different because you did it before. Ali Siddiq, I guess I'm out.
After they finish filming, I'm gonna do some of the new stuff.
In this episode, we met people who served or are still serving a range of sentences. It made me think of all the ways that people who get out still bring prison with them. I recently went to a welcome home party for a friend who's been released after 20 years. All of his family were there to celebrate. But after a few moments, he asked me to join him in a separate room. We sat there for 2 hours, letting the party go on outside while he found comfort with being with someone familiar. Adjustment takes time. I know people who struggle to reconnect with their partners, sleeping on the far edge of the bed because they've gotten used to sleeping on a small cot. People who refuse to shower barefoot or stack bars of soap in neat pyramids on their dresser as a sign of status. I've been out for 4 years, and there's still plenty of habits I can't seem to shake. So I rely on a WhatsApp group of people with similar experiences who never judge. But whatever you do, remember that if you're fortunate enough to get a fresh start, it's okay if some baggage comes with you. Your prison family will always have your back. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.